Welcome to Coming from Left Field, where we have conversations about politics, books, and current events with your host, Greg Godels and Pat Cummings. By age 85 or more, 15 to 20% of us will be living in a nursing home or assisted living, costing $5,000 to $10,000 a month based on location and care level. These facilities, often run by corporations, franchises, or private equity firms, may prioritize cost-cutting over resident dignity. Expect outdated decor, few activities, high staff turnover, and minimal oversight. The tragic truth is America's elder care is a hot mess. Let's discuss. Well, warm greetings. We're really looking forward to our podcast today. We're with Judy Karofsky, who wrote the very good book, DisElderly Conduct, The Flawed Business of Assisted Living and Hospice. And welcome, Judy. Greg is in the middle of a heat dome in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He's complaining about the heat. And been wearing flannel shirts in the Northwest all week, and it's still a little chilly out here.
And we sent the heat to Pittsburgh because I'm in Madison. We had it until last night at about 8 o'clock.
Well, it's good to know it's going to break. It's good to know it's going to change.
It did.
Terrific. Look forward to it.
Hey, we just really liked your book. As I told you before we got on, I just recently lost my mother-in-law to assisted living facility, and Greg's sister that he's primary caretaker for, elderly sister, is in assisted living. And you wrote this book that is a story of your your situation with your mother in assisted living, and it reads a little bit like a Stephen King novel, like Misery at times. It is but it just chronicles what went on with your mother, and in response to that, you decided to just pick up the torch and put a spotlight on this assisted living arrangement that we have in our country. Is that pretty accurate?
On the business, on the industry. And actually, Pat, my educational background, a professional background before I was a writer, which is quite new, gave me the ability to see the whole, not just the facility that my mom was in, but to start to understand what's going on in the industry, in the profiteering that's happening. And these are not caregiving facilities. They're caregiving, but they're not medical facilities, and they're growing. There are thousands, 30,000 assisted living facilities in the country right now. 1 million people are in an assisted living care facility.
Right. Let me get into your background a little bit. You are from Wisconsin, Middleton, which is, close to the San Francisco of the Midwest, beautiful Madison, and you were a councilwoman. This is weird. You're one of the first female mayors in Wisconsin.
Woman,
is that correct?
Yeah,
that's weird. Does that seem kind of weird to you? That
well, it was a while ago, and it's possible I was the first, but somebody came up with a name from the 1920s, so I had to give up my crown.
Oh, okay.
And when I was mayor, I was in truth the only woman mayor in the state. And but there's so many more now, and many capable women in politics, which is something that we all worked on for many years. But it did happen.
And you, when you were involved in government, you worked on establishing senior centers, worked on the governor's committee in economic development, housing. So you come to it with some policy background in economics, with in BA and an MA in both American history and business. Everybody should have at least one of their degrees should be American history. That's
Indeed.
my feeling. So tell us about your mother, and I hope you don't mind. I looked at your Instagram page, and this is your mother.
It is. And that what she
This
is
is your
doing
mother.
there, I haven't seen that in a very long time. But I talk about her Halloween. She loved Halloween. Hold it up again. She said to
Okay,
me,
for
she,
those of you who aren't watching, her mother is dressed up as a queen or a fairy or something like that as a
she
Halloween
she called herself
contest.
Mata Hari. Mata
Mata
Hari. I said,
Hari.
I don't think Mata Hari dressed like that. But that's
Could
and she was
be.
And
she was
and
so
I
so
and I
happy
get the
that night.
feeling from your book she was a character.
She was a
Uh,
character. And
she
that's
she
how
was
she
kind of
got
a
through life.
character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, tell us about your mother.
My mom, oldest of three, her mom died when there were three little uh, siblings. She was 11. Her mother died of a self-induced abortion in the just as the depression was falling on Boston. They weren't, as I know, they weren't impoverished, but they didn't. Obviously, a fourth child would have been, I guess, a burden. She died in Boston City Hospital. And so the state divided up the three children. They wouldn't let my grandfather take care of them. And she eventually begged to be able to keep house. And she did that. So the three children and my grandfather lived together. So she was strong willed. Um, Jumping to her career after I was in college, had left the home when I was in college, she just walked into a major corporation in this country, AT&T, New England Tell and Tell, and said to the receptionist on the ground floor, I want an interview. You're going to hire me. And she moved up the corporate ranks to a very high level. At her retirement many years later, they let me know that a woman rarely rose to those ranks, or a Jewish woman rose to those ranks, but she was clever and willful, and her position was in yellow pages, so she was writing ads for AT&T, and she was very clever, and because she could tell if something was insincere or not truthful. And she carried that with her. She could tell me in the years when she was in assisted living, the years that I wrote about in the book, she knew when people weren't being sincere and when things weren't happening as they had been promised. And that's a major part of the book.
When she got ill, she aged and got older. She had a stroke, right?
She had
Is
a
that
stroke. Yeah.
right?
Probably a series of what they call mini strokes, which are
Hmm.
warnings I've learned. And we would take her to the hospital. She would stay in the hospital. They'd run a battery of tests and send her home. That's what they tend to do with TIAs. I've read recently, and it's somewhere on my website. Those are signals. Be aware. And eventually, the stroke was major, and they let me know that she could not go back to the independent living part of her elderly care complex, which was very near my home. And we hadn't thought about the next stages. Although as chatty and as engaging as my mother was, she knew all of the people who were in the assisted living facility, who were the caregivers or the management, because she would visit people there. So she was comfortable going there. She understood that her life would change, and her life did change once she was in assisted living.
My mother-in-law, the same thing, had stroke, took her into the emergency room. 9 hours later, sent her home. I knew something was wrong. And the next day, another one, and it. So that whole process of the initial evaluation is at times it's limited to the emergency room. The emergency room is packed. It's understaffed. It's hours and hours to get tests and
In that
well,
first approach to the emergency room, they said they could not keep her because it would be an unsafe place for an older person to be, and that it might cost me $2,000 because of the Medicare regs about how many days you have to be in a hospital before Medicare kicks in. In the end, it cost much more than $2,000 for that week, but that was not the issue. The issue was that she didn't receive the care immediately that she needed. I don't know if the course of her life would have been different if she'd been kept in the hospital that weekend. But from that moment on, I was aware that I was going to be called upon to make decisions about her life and her care.
people are unaware of how expensive this care is. The average nursing home is maybe $9,000 a month. The average assistant living is $4,000 to $5,000 a month. We were paying 7,000. Greg, how much are you paying for your sister?
About 7,000 a month.
And that is in very, very rural central Illinois, in an area that isn't an urban area. So there is a lot of money involved in the care of baby boomers who are now approaching this. What percentage of people 85 and over, maybe 1 out of 5, is going to eventually be in a nursing care or assisted living? Isn't that about right?
I look at the population and I listen to stories, and I think everybody is going to be needing some kind of care or making decisions for someone who will move out of the house. People do remain in their homes, and that's the point of Being Mortal, Atul Gawendi's book. But the model that I'm familiar with and that we're discussing here, and that's making the obscene profits, is the assisted living model, and it's just growing. It's profiteering, it's exploitation of the workers. And we all know that private equity REITs have entered the picture. I'm not sure about the facility that Greg's sister is in. I hope for the best, but they're frequently corporate, uh, remote decision making. They're just not care facilities.
You mentioned the Being Mortal book, and he talks about how he loves assisted living, but then he follows up and says, but it really doesn't work.
And
It, it,
actually, Pat, he's quoting, and that's exactly what he says, but he's quoting someone named Karen Brown Wilson,
okay,
who
start
who
start there.
invented who invented assisted living. And I do cover her story in the book and refer to his coverage of the story. Uh, in the late 1970s, her mother had a stroke at age 55 and didn't want to stay in a nursing home. That's all, but there were nursing homes in the ward, regular care, regular hours, regular feeding, and said to her daughter, "Get me out of here." And Karen Brown Wilson and her husband basically invented this concept, assisted living, where people could have their own rooms, apartments, bring pets if they wanted to many, lock doors, paint their rooms. We painted my mother's room a few times. Um, and then her business grew, and it grew, and it grew until she had facilities in 18 different states. But there was never, and that's interstate commerce now, but there was never any, never had been any federal definition or regulations in place. And as I learned in May, because I did a little bit more research on where is she, what has happened to Karen Brown Wilson, her corporation, which included investors and policymakers and cost containment discussions, was eventually sued because of things that happened, including deaths in the facilities. She's still doing very good work, but that's as far as I know about that story. And I honor her. I honor her for what she did, because she thought out of the box. She said, "We're not going to continue to have people institutionalized in nursing homes. We will have another model." And she successfully came up with the model. But we're still kind of back in the 80s and 90s with respect to the federal government. There's nothing. They have nothing to say about this model. Nursing homes, yes, and we have to be careful, really careful, not to confuse them, because nursing homes are regulated, both federal and state, and the funding is quite different. Assisted living tends to be private pay. People's savings, people's pensions, people's Social Security. That's it.
Right.
Three-legged stool.
Greg, what are your thoughts? You're in the same exact position as Judy, where you are essentially managing and overseeing and supervising the arrangements through an assisted living. What
Yeah,
about
well,
this?
I think it's, it's a larger question. It really is the question about of medical care in this country. This is just an aspect of medical care. It's medical care for the elderly or care for the elderly. But we have a crisis in medical care in this country. And it can't be solved with a private market-centered approach. It just can't.
Mhm,
And every country in the world knows that but us.
mhm,
If you look at, and I'm no by no means an expert, but obviously I have a special interest in it, in knowing about it, as the three of us do. But in other countries, it's not done this way.
mhm,
And when it comes to assisted living, affordable living is a whole nother concept that I despise. But when it comes to assisted living, that question is turned on its head. I mean, in other countries, assistance comes to you, and the plan, the national medical plan, provides for that. So my sister at this particular moment has a house of some value that she would prefer to be in,
mhm,
but because of her dementia, she can't. And so we are keeping a house, and we're paying for assisted living as well. The best solution and a much cheaper solution for everybody involved would be for her to stay at home
mhm,
and have people come and assist her.
mhm,
It'd be but she's basically renting a place that she doesn't need because it's profitable to somebody, and that's the insanity of this kind of a system and how it functions. We need to get a new model. Like we have one. I mean, if you look at VA care, veterans in this country have an entirely different system. If you happen to be a veteran, you deserve the
mhm,
system you have, which is a much better system than the rest of us have. And that system is one in which the VA will take care of your needs as you grow older. And your terminal needs, your palliative needs are done, and they're all handled, and it doesn't cost you anything. It's much cheaper. It's a cheaper system, a more rational system. And one of the missing ingredients about this whole thing that often isn't discussed is the people that work in these facilities are paid nothing. They're paid at the bottom of the scale. And so when people expect more from them, why are they expecting more from people they're not paying anything to? And at this very moment in this country, we're trying to get rid of the people at the bottom of the scale and chase them out of our country. So it's a much bigger crisis than just our three stories. Yours is very moving and people need to hear it. Pat's is very moving and people need to hear it. But in the end, they've got to draw some conclusions about the
mhm,
way we treat people in this country that have medical needs and elderly needs.
mhm. Totally agreed. Pat mentioned John Nichols, my friend in Madison, our friend John Nichols, who said when he introduced me at the launch of the book, civilizations are judged by how they take care of their elderly, and we're not doing quite well. We're not, and we're all aware that in other countries, in other environments, people they're intergenerational solutions, which we just don't have, because and some of it is a lot of it is the current state of affairs, the growth of this animal called assisted living. I watch new subdivisions be developed around me in the Midwest. First thing that goes in is a facility for the elderly. That's where the money is being made. And nobody asks about the cost because when they're looking for help, and, and it's sort of a fear of missing out. The next one might cost more. Well, maybe it will be a better choice. Frequently, it's not. And it really is profiteering. It's taking advantage of people who are frightened, under duress, have to move people out of a hospital. Those social workers weren't very nice to us. They gave us a day or 2 days to make a decision. How could I make a decision in a city that I'd lived in for many years? I couldn't go visit places and watch my mom, and because they were training her to do things like eat again, feed herself. So the elements are there for those who will profit from this, and you know we're prioritizing profit over people. That's what's going on right now.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but I think feel like I have the floor. The issue about the staff, that is exploitation. people are brought in to work, and they're, yes, they are underpaid. They are undertrained. They're not supervised. They're not managed. I knew many who held down positions in 2 different facilities. My mom used to recognize them as she moved around because she was in 6 different unique facilities. She'd see somebody that she knew 2 facilities ago. Love them all in the beginning because they were there to help her. But the help needed help. The help need help and representation and unionization. They do.
Let me follow up what Greg said. You know, our podcast is coming from left field, and we are lefter than most people are left. And you know, one of the things that we're frustrated with is the capitalist model. At times runs amok with no regulation, and doesn't care about people, cares about profit. So there, preaching. Okay, so here we have a article, and there's many of these articles, and looking for it's private equity continues to acquire and bankrupt nursing homes. So you mentioned in the last chapter of your book that I think you were teaching some classes on economics and finance and you were, you know, if you were to stand up in front of young students and say, hey, there's a lot of money to be made in this particular industry, partially because so many people are aging and needing this care, but the other is it's just not regulated. So here's a summary of that article. We are building to where almost up to 13% of nursing homes are owned by private equity firms. It's just growing, growing, growing. I'm not sure what assisted living is, but
Similar.
They are those who own. If you compare private equity to other facilities for financing assisted living and nursing homes, they have more violations, lower staff, and higher fines. They are oftentimes extract the wealth from these facilities and drive them into bankruptcy and leave people high and dry. They are known for exploiting all of the regulatory loopholes. They hide their ownership and accountability. They are not transparent at all with their business model. And basically, they're just driven for profits at the expense of the people that they take care of. That is disaster capitalism 101. And I'm not so sure I didn't see that exactly in my situation, and you chronicle it pretty well in yours. As your mother gets sick and complains, go find someplace. Go, you know, you're off you go. Find someplace else. You know, good luck.
We were a persona non grata. They did not want to have to deal with us, but I was there all the time, asking for things, trying to develop a relationship with the state ombudsman, a neutral party, and I paid for that. The way and it was reflected in my mother's records, because I have her records, not mine. I was not the patient. That Judy had threatened to call the state. Threatening to call the state means that the ombudsman came to see me one day, and we were actually going to have a little mediation session with the people who are caring for my mom, but then she unfortunately died. People are afraid of that, and there really is no recourse. And we have to be careful not to confuse nursing homes and assisted living. There are more regulations for nursing home and a different system for paying for nursing homes. As you know, Medicaid takes over for nursing homes. Again, assisted living, you're on your own. You want to be cared for. You want to be in a facility that looks pretty nice when you walk in the door. When you go to see your sister, Greg, the lobby, the furniture looks attractive. But what's going on in the rooms is not care. It's not medical care. The money, there's so much money being generated right now in this industry.
Well, it reflects a class base too. I mean, we take the $6,000 that I report, $7,000 I report we spend per month. That's $72,000 a year. And 2 or 3 years, you're talking about a substantial amount of money that's beyond,
Mhm.
well beyond more than 50% of the people in
Mhm.
this country, maybe
Mhm.
60, 70%. They're not even a player in assisted living. They
And
can't unless they sell their home. If we just did we just did a podcast on wealth and wealth distribution. And Pat, you'll remember the numbers. 50% of the people in this country, households in this country, have less than 3% of the total wealth. With that, you're not going to be able to get into assisted living for more than a few months. So we're the
Mhm.
privileged of the
Mhm.
people. Even talking about assisted living, we're
Mhm.
privileged.
Mhm.
The rest of the people are flotsam and jetsam in this country. They have no recourse except for
Mhm.
nursing homes.
Mhm.
And if they don't qualify for that, they're
Mhm.
wandering the streets with dementia. No one cares for them except family. It's all reduced to family. Family has to take care of it. Just sad.
And the admission, because my mom did move from facility to facility for various reasons, none of them good. Um, the admission was based on her income statement. That's what they wanted. Can you bring us her bank account or her tax return from last year, her income statement? So I acknowledge that it's not for everyone, but for those who can and will do it, support it, somebody's making a lot of money,
Yeah.
and relatives, decision makers want the best. I want the best for my mom. Let's extend. I wanted to extend her life because, fortunately for me, her uh, malady was not Alzheimer's. She did know who I was as I came in day after day. Her body was giving out. She knew who my dog was. She knew who my kids were. That kept me going, I'm sure. At one point, the book, DisElderly Conduct, was the working title was The $7,000 Grilled Cheese Sandwich.
$10,000.
No, I upped it.
Oh, you
First it
did.
was 7, then I inflated it. Yes, you are a good reader. Then it was the
Yeah.
$10,000 because I thought that had a better ring to it. And 710 became the $10,000 grilled cheese sandwich until my publisher said to me that she almost didn't open the email when I sent the proposal to her because it read like a publisher's clearinghouse email. And so we changed it. But the fact was that my mom at 7 or 10 or 12 or 20 every single day, twice a day, was eating a grilled cheese and tomato sandwich. She she didn't want the food any longer. They weren't working with her. They weren't. One thing was they were not providing kosher food for her, and so she and her table mates just ate the same thing day after day. Not nutritional.
Let's get back to the Stephen King aspect of your book. If for those who haven't read the book, and I hope you pick the book up, it is just this chronology of you talking about your loving mother and your family, and I guess you've got a sister that's kind of a bigwig, right? Jill, is that right? Is
Who's
she?
my daughter? But yes,
Oh,
she's
is
on the
she a
Supreme
judge?
Court in this state.
Okay, okay. So you guys know what's going on. You can kind of read the memo and make sense out of it, things like that. So she ends up going into a facility, and all of a sudden one day you get a call saying, "I'm sorry to inform you, we're calling to let you know your mother died."
Middle of the
And
night, actually, 2 o'clock in the morning.
2 o'clock in the morning,
Woke me up.
right?
I had just
And
been
you
with her.
Yeah, and you would just, oh my gosh, did she suffer? Did she,
Mhm.
um and then they called back and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I read the chart wrong. It
Mhm.
wasn't your mother, she's still
Mhm.
around."
Mhm.
Like, holy cow,
Mhm.
that's a big deal.
Big deal.
But it shows you that it's not a regulated, I'm sure this person was probably overworked and
Mhm.
kind of freaked out and
Mhm.
knew and didn't know what's what and got the wrong
Mhm.
chart, but
And she'd seen my mother that afternoon. And on that second call, she let me know that she was in another facility. So, yes, overworked. And she was, however, one of the hospice staff. So that's the same but different from the uh, undertrained, underpaid, underrepresented caregivers on the floor all day long. But the callousness of that and the callousness of the response did one thing. Forever after that, I was on alert. And, when they didn't like what my responses were, did you read far enough to see that they put me under a suicide watch? Because I said something about Debbie Reynolds and her daughter dying one day apart. I mean, none of it was an accurate assessment of the conversation, but that stayed in my mom's record until she died. In her record.
Unreal. We had a situation where there were, we only lived 10, 15 minutes away from my mother-in-law, and we'd get calls saying it's been 2 hours and no one's coming, to I need to go to the bathroom. Nobody's coming. And we'd get up in the morning and drive over there and what's going on. And so one simple thing was, every time you have a pendant and you press a pendant for call, it tracks it and it tells you how long did it come before a nurse or a nurse's aide comes and presses the pendant to say, I'm responding to your call. That's a simple thing, and it's all electronic, and it's a simple database.
Are you making this up, wishing it, or it actually was
We
used?
have that. We had that. Did you have that?
Not with the detail that you just described.
Right. So it's just a simple thing of when did you call, and then every time the nurse comes in, they click it and they clear it, and that says, I responded. So we asked whether or not we could get records of how many times she called and what the response rate was. I mean, it's simple. It's her records.
Right.
No, we can't really do that. So we called the state, and the state has accurate. They have access to that. Why don't we, as our records, they have access, because that's one of the things that they actually track. And then it turns out that she said, well, I can tell you that the average is 20 minutes. Well, average doesn't do anything to the extremes. That means she was there at 1 minute one time, and it was like 2 hours the other time. Well, that can be averaged to a certain amount of time. So anyway, after all of that, when we realized that the people at the facility weren't being honest with us, were not being accurate, we filed a complaint, and the director was gone, got fired. So what happened? That they've had 4 directors in a period of a year. They just, people come in. The companies that run these things are employees are expendable. Yeah, it just, and then all of a sudden you're going, oh my God, it's not the people. It's the whole system that allows you to extract this much wealth from families in the end of their care with no ability to have any repercussion for insight and control and management. Now, to your point, the nursing homes do have that as part of an information, and they have minimum staffing ratios, and they monitor that. And Biden was supposed to transfer that to assisted living, and I don't think he ever got around to doing it before.
Even the Biden minimums for nursing homes are gone.
Oh my God.
Somebody became president after him, and they're gone.
No.
Yes. So we don't. The changes that he was going to bring about haven't happened and won't.
Oh my God.
You can say that about a lot of things right now, but that is accurate, Pat. Hasn't happened. It's still under discussion. It's still confrontational. It won't happen. And we're in a much worse situation than we were a year ago. We can all agree to that. However, the answer is not just increasing the staffing. The answer is not even just decreasing the educational requirements, which did happen in this state. That's not addressing the problem. We need them to be better educated, better compensated, better represented. So when they go home, they have health care. They have benefits because they're helping people all day long. I watched exhausted caregivers come into the facilities. And when there weren't enough caregivers, they were agency people, part-timers who were hired from an agency because the facility couldn't function on a given day. So they made the call to the employment agency, which was also staffing nursing homes and hospitals and clinics in the area. And they had no tie at all to the people who were in the facility.
Greg, it's not that bad for your sister, is it? You've been to it seems like because it's a
Well, I don't,
smaller rural area,
no, I don't, I mean, I don't think it's, I don't think of it in that way. I think of it in a global way. What I learned from dealing with assisted living, I try to apply generally to people. Of course, I'm interested in, I'm an advocate for my sister, and I have resources, and I know people, just as you know people, and obviously, Judy, you know people, prominent people. So I don't look at it in terms of my problem. I look at it as a general problem, social problem. And as such, it's appalling. I don't know if you've ever really given care. I mean, I had a friend who did home care for his mom and dad. It was kind of irrational. They were both, the mother was in a coma, father was demented. But I would give him a break as others of his friends would from time to time. So I had the occasion to spend a couple of days doing home care with people that I knew and cared about. And when you have to clean crap up, let me be blunt, when you have to attend to the things you have to attend to, realize how unpleasant it is. And you say, to begin to solve this, we've got to pay people enough to do it. So they have self-respect. It takes your self-respect away to have to deal. And I don't have to describe what you, but both of you know it. Some of our listeners or watchers may not know it, but it's ugly what you have to deal with. That's what we, when we get old, will be doing. So people, to begin, you got to pay people well. You got to pay them very, very well. Take some pride. As you say, Judy, they have to be trained properly. They're not going to be motivated to train properly if they make nothing, if it's a dead end job with no income. Let's start there, and let's take it out of the hands of private investors and speculators. It can't be in that. It can't be in that.
Brookdale, which is one of the publicly traded assisted living corporations. This article was just in the Washington Post in the spring. For years, this is not new. They've had an algorithm in place to hold down the staffing numbers. I mean, they know. I mean, what it's real estate, managing real estate, supplies, food, staffing, employees. They want to cut costs and earn even more. That's what they're doing, reducing the number of staff.
Well, think about it. What could be their desideratum? It has to be tolerance, the tolerance of the people involved, because the people, the commodification of the elderly, they know they're going to die. I know they're going to die. I know I'm going to die. So that's not a factor. The factor is how much will the other people involved tolerate? How much abuse will they tolerate? How little care will they tolerate? How much can we get away with, essentially? That's what drives the bottom line. And we have to get this question out of the hands of people that measure success by the bottom line. I don't want my sister to be her future, her comfort to be decided by people who are only concerned about the bottom line.
And
Your
that's the
article,
cry. Go ahead.
your article about Brookdale, that was April 2024, Washington Post. Subscribe to the Washington Post. The algorithm was reduced staff levels in many communities while Brookdale ignored recommendations of the increasing staff. So they set this up of just a way of squeezing the staff. Former employees and court records indicate the algorithm failed to account for extra time required for dementia patients. In other words, not all patients in these homes are are equal. Some don't require that much care. Some require an awful lot of care, and they just didn't care that certain populations needed more care and assistance. It was just all one fits all. They had several lawsuits due to poor care. They denied and fought the lawsuits. So this is, and then it mentions other companies like United Healthcare. The guy that was shot was
Right.
United
I know,
Healthcare. I won't say
it's not
too
funny.
much about that. I don't want to be on a list of some sort to say. And then they mentioned other cares too. So, this is like, as this is going on, and that's why I liked your book, because your book told the same story. As I'm going through this, and, I wish I would have read your book a year ago. It's just, you're not alone. You're not alone. But here's another problem I have, and I think this is part of the problem. How long do people live in these homes? Well, the average person in assisted living is there for 22 months, less than 2 years. Uh, so they are, the median length for a nursing home is just over a year, 13.7 months. So we're all going through this, and it doesn't happen that long, and then it's over, and you're exhausted, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm done with this. But I liked when you were talking about your publisher. They said, "Who is your target audience?" And don't say everyone. And you thought about it. Tell us that story.
You're talking about, you watched the book launch when I
Yeah.
expressed this. Let's start at the beginning, how I waited for a publisher and waited for a publisher. And every night for months, I went to bed with the title page and the chapters under my pillow. And then I finally did get a publisher. But in that period when I was looking for an agent or a publisher, one agent said to me, "Do not say to us that your book is for everyone. Everybody says that to us." So I stepped back and I defined a primary market and a secondary market, as I guess they want you to do. But this is what I said that you heard me say from that launch. Every one of us, and this is 3 for 3 on the screen right now, every one of us will end up needing or receiving care from a facility for the aging or care for the aging. And every one of us is responsible for determining how somebody else will be cared for. So I said, do the math. The book is for everyone. And no matter where I go, when I begin this conversation, somebody is dealing with this right now. People, it's universal. And Greg said it in the beginning of this discussion. This is not how a civilization should be. We should not all be sharing stories of angst and unacceptable care and pain and concern. I mean, I'm worried about your sister right now. What's going on there? Because I'll go visit her. No, it's not in that way. Because thank you for smiling, but I am. I'm concerned about anybody who's in a facility right now, and we've left out part of the discussion, which is memory care, because memory care, Pat and Greg, is assisted living. There's no difference between assisted living and memory care except a locked door, because they don't want to be responsible for or have to chase after people who can get out. That is the only difference. Oh, wait, no, there's a second difference. Memory care costs more than assisted living, but the facility is usually the same. The food, the services, the caregivers, the activities. Sometimes we hope memory care have different planned activities, but that locked door allows assisted living facilities to offer memory care, promise you there will be memory care, and to charge more as time goes on.
Exactly right. And you're exactly right. We had, and again, it all falls back on the entire medical system, because when my sister was with me in Pittsburgh, which we have a much more sophisticated medical system based on the University of Pittsburgh and research and so on, I took her in. She didn't want to get care here, but I had an emergency situation. I took her to the hospital. She was evaluated, and they identified her dementia, and they did cognitive tests, and they suggested that this could be done and that could be done. But when she goes back to rural Illinois, downstate Illinois, the healthcare system is terrible. They've never analyzed her or diagnosed her as having onset dementia, and so they continue to plug along. And you're right about the I mean, when we were interviewed to get into assisted living, the question of what motivated us, which was her going on a little trip by herself one evening at 2 a.m. That was going to become an obstacle for them because they didn't want to get involved with responsibility for that kind of a thing. So you're exactly right.
Wait. So they almost didn't let her in
Yeah,
because you
exactly.
recounted that one time she became confused at night and
Well,
was
that's what Judy was saying about the doors.
And that's why you wanted her in, so that she would be cared
holy
for.
crap.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's right. I mean, that's a desideratum. That's what they decide around.
The industry considers the average stay 3 years. There's an important documentary PBS Frontline did, now it might be 8 or 9 years ago, Life and Death in Assisted Living. I just rewatched it. I've read it, watched it a number of times. But one of the things they discuss there, among other things, is the back door. That even though all these things are happening, and they don't want to keep people who are declining, or in my mom's case, she was evicted when hospice stopped serving her, taking care of her. The institution, the facility, has a don't let them out the back door policy. So the employees, the staff, the caregivers will run hoops to keep people in place because they're rent payers. It's rent. It's real estate.
Yeah. It is.
Okay. Well, you guys are all bumming me out because, I'm trying to think of the way out of this. And it's get rid of private equity firms. Well, that's not
For a
going to
lot of
happen.
reasons.
Regulate. Well, the Republicans don't want to regulate. And according to Ezra Klein, in abundance, the new phase of Democrats are all about get government out of the way and don't regulate. So you're not going to have more oversight. Um, there's um, there's patterns of hiring and so forth, and the revolving door about that. I don't know. Golly, just it is bad, isn't it? Give us be positive. Somebody tell me, talk me off the ledge here.
That we organize and say, hell no, we're not going to have any more of this. That we organize a demonstration, that we sign petitions, everything that's changed in American history. And I just read Zinn's book, finally, happened because of
Took you long enough, Judy.
because of petitions. How many times does he quote the numbers who were present at the demonstration? That's how everything so far has happened in this country. I don't know what's happening from the current demonstrations.
Well, you're exactly right, but you also need a model, and we have the VA. I mean, it's a perfect model, but it's one that doesn't have investors involved in it. It's reasonably successful. You don't hear vets complaining about how they go to the end, even the cemeteries. I mean, they don't have to worry about paying for the cemeteries, and it's all done on the cheap. So we have a model, but we don't have politicians with the will to pursue that model. They want to get rid of that model. They really want to get rid of the VA. So,
but we have politicians whose parents are going through this. My own state representative has told me a story that he might have been telling my story about walking into the facility and there was his mom just sitting in front of a TV and unhappy. So getting to people like that, but the motivation, the willingness to step out front, how much we've lost. Only since November, how much we've lost. But
let's say some nice things. Okay. I want to end on a positive note. You have to be getting good reception with this because when you come and do a book reading or a review or an interview, everyone tells stories like Greg and I. You know, this
Unfortunately.
is what happened to me. This was happened to my mom. So you're almost acting as a therapist in a way for a lot of the community as you tell your story. It's like we're in an AA meeting where everybody's talking about their,
Yeah,
their,
but therapy's not going to get us out of this mess, Pat. And
But
AA
but
meetings
but
no,
don't.
but
you
at least tell me that you're not getting a positive response to this book, and this isn't.
only only the positive. I said this in that book launch too. The flaw in the book about flaws is that there really aren't solutions. We can come up with them. Then it would just be an argument with Judy Karofsky about the solutions that she put forward. But my mom's story seems to keep rising. I really was not writing a story about my adorable mother. She was the vehicle that allowed me to present the what had her itinerary on its journey through 6 different unique facilities. I'm a student of real estate development, real estate investment. I had done a white paper in the before the housing bust about institutional investing in senior housing. This is of interest to me, and I did want to talk about that and discuss the history and what the demographics are doing and where the demand is coming from. And I had a writing coach. His name was John Didakis. He's in Baltimore. He had been in Madison. He once served on CNN as Wolf Blitzer's editor. And I kept track of him over the years. And as I started writing, I contacted him. I knew he was a coach. He writes novels, not nonfiction. But he did at one point suggest that I develop my mom. And I did. And bless her heart, Lillian, became the appropriate vehicle because people are connecting with her story, which is everybody's story. And the rest of it is what I had hoped to do, which is to shed light on this industry. John Nichols said to me in the very beginning, "Do you think you're the Jessica Mitford of assisted living?" And I said, no, well, it's not what I intended to do. And it's not an expose. And you'll notice I do not, of course, I had some legal advice, but I do not name any of the facilities. People who live in this community can maybe they can figure out probably which ones I'm talking about. But it's a story that's resonating because of where we are now. And the numbers they're just going to keep increasing. I'm too old to be a baby boomer. I have a child who's too young to be a baby boomer. So the baby boomers are coming, they'll turn 80. They're just fodder for the profiteering unless we say, maybe not develop a model, but just say, we're not going to do this any longer. No,
Mhm,
no,
mhm.
do it a different way.
Um, you're our Norma Ray.
I'll listen to you.
Yeah, yeah. I want to say something nice about the industry, though.
Let's do it.
The staff truly loved my mother-in-law
Mhm.
when she died and went to hospice and came back to the nursing facility. To a person, they walked into the room crying, caring. They
Mhm.
truly were wonderful
Mhm.
staff.
Mhm.
They weren't paid much. They had turnover, but there's a lot of care there. There's a lot of feeling like people care. The My wife is a musician, and she started when my started doing little concerts at this place where she would come up and sing songs.
Sure.
And even though my mother-in-law's passed away, she goes every other week, and the place is packed, and they have a sing along, and they're going to be doing a concert, and so there is
Pat,
there
thank her for
is
me, please.
well, there is a place for trying to make these things better.
Mhm.
It just is the financial arrangement figuring out how to extract great wealth from a small population of people that have wealth at the end of their life, and then go on to the next one,
Mhm.
Is something that I'm really glad you shed light on, and I think that's where we need to direct our attention. So,
Hell no, I won't be vulnerable anymore. Can I swear here? Can I tell you the sign I had for the latest demonstration?
yeah, sure.
My
Boy,
sign said, "I'm too old for this shit."
yeah, aren't we all? Yeah.
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 So, and we're fighting. It's uphill. It's been uphill since November. You weren't even aware that nursing home minimum staffing was at play. At play, it's gone.
That's gone. Oh my
Uh,
God.
and there was another one, which was about who can you sue? Do complaints go to binding arbitration or mediation or suit? And that shows up in the small print when you enter a facility. And Trump took care of that.
Oh, he did. Yeah, he did do that.
That was early on. Yeah.
Let's hope he has a stroke and ends up in a nursing home taken care of by someone from, I don't know, Jamaica or where they eat dogs, one of those places. I just,
Haiti.
oh, Haiti, right. Let's say a good Haitian person that's kind of still
And those
angry at him
and those
about the dog eating.
and
Let's
those
hope that
Haitian
that's the,
people are and others are the caregivers. There's sometimes language issues, but they're so sweet. I mean, they know how
they're
to.
good.
They're
Yeah.
so good.
And even the administrative staff, vast majority were really good, but they're under the constraints of constantly changing corporate demands that are trying to extract wealth. I mean,
Mhm.
so Marx basically laid this out years ago. So there we go. Hey, thanks for coming on our podcast. I hope this sparks a little bit of passion in people to get up and do something and to put this on the radar and um, hopefully get some trajectory and that's going in a positive way. So this has done a lot. It's a good book, Judy. You really did
Thank
have
you.
done. You should be proud of how how it's being used. It's the silent spring of assisted living. That's a
Now
little
I'm
too
Rachel
much.
Carson. This is good.
That
Don't
that's they
worry,
wait that
Rachel
wait a second.
Carson.
That's a little too much. That's over. Yeah, yeah. That's exaggerating. But
Jessica,
I'm Irish.
Jessica
I
Mitford
exaggerate.
and
Uh,
Rachel Carson and
Rachel Carson.
come on, Pat.
Yeah,
Let's
I
get,
All right, and
how
this is
about
becoming
Judy?
quite
Let's just stick with
sexist,
Judy.
guys.
yeah, right. I'll never. I'm
Let's stick with
always
Judy, huh?
okay. All right. All
Thank
right.
I
All
like
you.
the way
right.
she is.
We'll
Sensitive
cut that.
values.
We'll cut that all out. So
But
okay.
promise me that we will meet again when we've made some progress and we could say, we probably put that in play.
Good. That's good.
So
That's a
Right.
good idea. That's a pledge.
Good.
It's a pledge.
Thank you.
Thanks,
thank
Judy.
you all. Thank you all for making this issue part of your agenda
Um,
today.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Greg. Fun too. All right.